Welcome to the Mom Please podcast, the #1 generation-spanning show that discusses all the latest issues in modern society, with your millennial host, Eric Joseph, along with baby boomer representative and co-host, Carol Stram. Join us as we delve into what's going on in the world today and discuss how to bridge the aisle to find common ground. And now, for this week's episode of Mom Please. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mom Please, the discussion and debate show that spans generations and tries to make some sense of everything that's going on in modern society. I am your millennial host, Eric Joseph, and I am joined by my lovely baby boomer co-host, Carol Stram. How are you today, Mom?
Hey, I'm great. Eric and I are mother and son, and we always love to have these discussions, and we always try to keep them civil and respectful. So today, we'd like to introduce our next topic, which is very interesting. We both watched the documentary on Sean Combs, The Reckoning.
Ooh.
And it's produced by Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. And we just want to talk about that today.
That's right, Mom. And, I think that this is a topic that's created a lot of buzz in the last few months. And I just want to say, I know that I asked a lot of you on this one.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I did. I'm the one that suggested the topic for today's podcast. And, Mom, you've got a loose relationship with the world of hip-hop and rap and, the cultural legacy that it kind of holds in our society
Well, I just want to point out that hip-hop actually lasted one time in the Olympics. One time only, and you will not see it anymore.
Oh, do you mean the breakdancing with Ray Gun?
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I think I could breakdance better than she can. But I do want to say thanks for being a really good sport with me today. Like, I know I asked a lot of you on this, and you did a ton of extra research. These are both books that she brought in and she went through, and I didn't even ask her to do that. So thanks for doing that, Mom.
Well, you're welcome. I'm very skeptical of this because when my kids were little kids, they'd want to listen to rap because it was pretty new then.
Yeah.
Because rap itself is only, 30 years old or so.
Right.
And I think
maybe 40 by now.
I would say you can't listen to any C-rap, meaning you couldn't listen to any crap, because I really did not like it. I'll explain my distaste for it a little bit later. But I did do a little bit of research, and I think this is worthy of having a conversation about, even if it's just to enlighten you a little bit about what's going on culturally.
Right. And, it doesn't really matter, how you feel about it or what you call it. Rap and hip hop is a cultural force. It's a cultural phenomenon.
Right.
And I think what's very interesting is how influential this Diddy character was and some of the crazier details that have come out about his life in the aftermath of his recent arrest and convictions, and where these pieces of information are coming from, because I think that you have to consider the source. You have to consider who is talking about this guy.
Right. And that's where I think our audience might get a little lost because of the producer of this. Right.
Yeah. You have 50 Cent, who is the executive producer of this, who is super, super famously known as being a ridiculously petty guy.
And when you say he's a petty guy, give me an example of how he's petty.
Okay, so he had beef with Ja Rule.
Ja Rule. I know him.
Your lips, your eyes. That guy, right?
Okay.
He's got a terrible voice. Really, really awful for being in modern pop culture. He has a song with Beyonce, in fact, which is crazy to me. But Ja Rule and 50 were beefing, and 50 Cent he did this, bought thousands of tickets to buy out the first few rows of the concert, the first 10 or 20 rows of a concert that Ja Rule's performing, just to leave those seats empty for the show. He didn't show up. He didn't go and enjoy the Ja Rule concert by himself in the seats he bought. He just left them empty. So, So that's the kind of guy that 50 Cent is.
Okay, that gives me some. That gives me some.
It gives you some perspective on this. So we do want to provide that for people, at least, just to know that maybe not all of the information that came out of this was done in a completely above the board way that is not just like, I hate this guy, I want to, bring hell down upon him from 50 Cent's perspective, right? But in any case, it's a 4-episode series, and the episodes kind of loosely follow Combs's life in a chronological-ish order, with each episode exploring a different part of his life.
Right.
Episode 1, Pain versus Love, begins with his early career at Uptown Records, the establishment of his own record company, Bad Boy Entertainment.
Right.
And his initial rise to notoriety through the City College Stampede, which was a local celebrity basketball event that P. Diddy promoted. Who this is how he really started his career. He was a promoter.
Right.
He would promote parties. He would promote
and
events,
he was good at that.
Like
he was very good
really,
at that.
really good at it. And so he promoted this local celebrity basketball event with a bunch of the members of the hip hop community that turned into a tragedy that ended up with 9 people dying after like a crowd crush kind of event happened, right? So then episode 2.
Right. Well, you know what, Eric? I think we should just go directly into the episodes.
You think we should? You think
I think we should.
All right.
I think
we
we
don't
should.
have to do that then.
Yeah, I think we should talk about.
All right, go for it.
It's a 4-episode Netflix documentary, and it really shows where Sean P. Diddy goes to.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that I'd have to say is that for me, Eric, I didn't know anything much about Diddy.
Yeah.
Other than he was pretty well respected and he was a self-made guy.
Okay.
And that he had a really solid reputation in the rap community as a mogul, essentially, in it, but really a solid reputation. But now that after I've seen this documentary, and I've read in here as well, this gangster rap book, I'm not so sure he's such a good guy. So why don't you... Yeah.
The way I feel about it is like, as I was watching these documentaries and I was going through like my research, I was like, the more I hear about this Diddy fella, the more I don't like him. And you could go ahead and start us off with the first episode.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to.
So the first episode is Pain versus Love. In the documentary, it tells you about his hard upbringing. I mean, he's from Harlan, Mount Vernon, New York. He's born into a family where his father is like this low-level gangster who gets killed when Sean is very young.
Right.
And so he's raised by a single mom who works, oodles of jobs just to keep him, fed. And but he always has this early ambition. People can feel it about him. He has ambition and he's entrepreneurial, and you can just feel that about him as a kid. But even in this section of the documentary, his mother speaks a little bit, and she talks about, working, and she alludes to the fact that she had an evening job serving cocktails, and you get the impression that she's serving more than cocktails.
She's maybe like a woman of the evening.
Yeah, and not explicitly said, but she's in an interview situation where Combs is right there, and he looks a little embarrassed by this, actually. So I'm not really sure about what that meant, but I think he was probably left alone a lot as a kid because his mother worked so much to keep him, fed and homed.
Yeah, there was also additional information in the documentary, in the 50 Cent documentary, and in some of my other research that suggested that she was very stern with him when she was around. And she was very much a no-nonsense. You got to act right in the streets.
Right.
You got to make sure to hold your own. And if you can't hold your frame, then you're useless.
Yeah. What's great about that is that's the Diddy that I think everybody came to know and love.
I think so, yeah.
Somebody who really was raised right by a single mom in a great environment. He goes to Howard University for a year.
Well, I'm actually saying I don't know if he was raised right, because I'm saying that she was beating him.
Oh, you didn't say beating.
Okay, well, I was getting to that point. Okay. Like that. That's where
didn't know that part.
See, that's where I think Diddy actually displays a lot of like these cluster B personality type disorders, like narcissism and antisocial personality disorder, and I think that's where it comes
from his mom.
Is the abuse that he suffered early on his mom? Because most people who have that
well,
kind of stuff,
I'll still stand by what I just said, that he's rising above all that. It looks like his image,
like he's coming out
of a bad situation and becoming somebody of
a person of
a worthy
success.
person, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they do talk about he goes to Howard University for 1 year,
right,
which is admirable in and to itself. But he really wants in on the music business. He's a dancer by trade, essentially, but he gets this internship with Uptown Records,
right,
which is New York based, and he becomes essentially the handler for the talent there, and he's producing events for them, and he's very good at it, right? And so he is really doing well. But then he breaks from Uptown Records to create Bad Boy Entertainment, and he is given from Uptown Records Mary J. Blige, who is a huge talent at this time. I mean, she's not essentially a rapper per se. She is legitimately known by everybody.
Right.
And then later, he takes on Biggie Smalls, who's also a huge talent.
That's really what I think elevated him from
his business,
kind of a medium-ish level mogul to somebody who's really at the top of the game. Because like as soon as like 1994 comes and Biggie's coming out with hits like Juicy, like he just explodes in popularity, and it's basically like at that point it's either you are like a Biggie fan or you're like a Pac fan. Tupac on the West Coast was kind of doing the same thing, and blowing up, and it's interesting you mentioned that he was working for Uptown Records, but then he left to go and form Bad Boy Entertainment, his own record company. Now, the reason he did that is actually he got fired from Uptown Records, and in the 50 Cent documentary, you see the guy who originally hired him, like the president of the company, saying that it was a really, really hard decision because Diddy was great, legitimately great at what he did, and promoting people and being able to identify music that would turn into like a hit song was another one of his big talents. He was too good at his job. Eventually, this guy knew that if he kept Diddy at his company, then Diddy would take his job. Right. So he had to get rid of him.
They had to separate
for this guy to preserve his own.
This particular episode doesn't shy away from what Eric alluded to before, the 1991 City College Celebrity Basketball Game for charity, where there's allegations that Combs himself assaulted his own mother in this situation.
As a result of the City College Stampede. That's crazy.
And that
wild.
9 people died in this because I think they just didn't have either the personnel or the environment to hold people, because they just stormed the gate and people were crushed, essentially.
The big problem with this situation is the building that it was being held in, the only way to enter or exit the building was through a pretty narrow staircase that led to a bunch of like gymnasium style doors that only opened in one direction. So everybody tried to storm into the facility, but the doors had closed at that point in time, and they only opened out. Right. So all these people are getting pushed up against these doors, and eventually, like, they had to like crush people opening the doors just so that they could filter some people into the gymnasium and try to, manage the situation. But 9 people killed in that. Ultimately, P. Diddy and one other person were being held liable for that, but they just paid everybody off. There were no criminal charges.
He suffers
resulted from this.
He suffers no ding to his persona.
He gets to maintain his image. And the people who suffered from this, I guess they got something out of it. But ultimately, maybe this is just the first sign of these patterns of behavior that Diddy engages in that show him, wow, I can get away with basically anything so long as I pay people money. So long as I give people money. And that pattern is going to come up again and again and again throughout Combs' life.
So this particular episode also has footage of Combs in 2024, days before his federal arrest.
And that stuff's crazy.
And it is interesting because, first of all, I'd say that I don't know how they were to acquire that footage. So how 50 Cent acquired that footage. Did he have permission for it? Is it against the client lawyer confidentiality issue? Because he's talking about how are we going to manage my?
Yeah, he's like talking his legal strategy through with his
how
attorneys.
How are we going to manage
Right.
my image during all of this?
Yeah, how are we going to make sure that this all goes away?
Yeah,
and
this all goes away, and I
the
came
better
out
for it.
A-okay.
Right.
So viewers are shocked, I think, initially at the behavior that they see because he is just completely consumed with how he's going to end up.
Oh yeah,
right?
Definitely. And I think one of the funniest things to me in seeing that footage is somehow Combs manages to establish it so that he doesn't have to do anything while this is going on.
No,
he says like, God came to me in a dream and told me I don't do anything. But y'all need to make sure that you're doing stuff to make sure that I'm okay.
I believe that
it's like he's so crazy narcissistic, this guy.
Right, and he even threatens his attorney.
Yeah,
like you're not doing the job here.
Right.
I cannot have any of this stick to me.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think people are a little shocked by that because I think his image was so positive prior to this.
Yeah.
And the discovery of this pre-indictment footage is I just don't know how they got it, and did Combs agree to it? I bet
Combs is the type of guy who is so
show anything, I'll get through it.
He'll just throw in. I mean, he filmed the like freak offs and stuff that he had in his and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
But go
so
continue.
that's essentially episode 1, and that brings us to episode 2.
Right.
Eric.
So episode 2 is titled "What Goes Down Must Come Up." A little bit of a reversal there, right? So it focuses on Bad Boy Entertainment's rise to power and how a lot of conflict came about from that, a lot of external conflict. So episode 2 goes through Combs's dominance in the hip hop scene throughout the 1990s. And this includes like Mary J. Blige, but most famously the Notorious B.I.G., otherwise known as Biggie Smalls.
Right.
As well as some other smaller bad boy
I don't know why they can't be Chuck Smith and Joe Black, but for whatever reason, they're not.
Yeah, well, that's
okay. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. I accept that. I accept
their rap
that.
names, right? And what's kind of most critical to this narrative is they have a really, really intense rivalry with the West Coast outfit, Death Row Records, who is headed by a guy named Suge Knight. And Suge Knight is, I believe, currently serving like a 25-year prison sentence for either actual murder or attempted murder.
Allegedly.
Something.
But he is in prison.
He's a bad dude. He's a bad dude.
And he's in charge of Death Row Records.
And he's in charge of Death Row Records, which includes like under its label, I think like Dr. Dre, NWA, Ice Cube was there at one point. Snoop Dogg
was there.
Like all these guys,
yeah, right?
So this documents the larger West Coast East Coast feud because P. Diddy is the East Coast kind of side of things. He's the New York representative. And eventually this culminates in the murders of both Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls.
Now, what I don't understand about that, okay, is I always think that when you have a competitor, that it takes your work, either your body of work or whatever it is that you do, and you rise up from that. You're all better because you have competition.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand. You didn't see, okay, back to my boomer days, you didn't see the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were always juxtaposed from each other. Like they would release their records intentionally 6 months apart so that they could get 6 months of airplay without the other one. But there was this what I would call a full rivalry beat around that one were the good boys and one were the bad boys, right? But that didn't even exist because they were actually friends with each other.
Sure.
I mean, the Beatles, I think, wrote a couple songs for the Stones and whatnot. So it didn't exist, and they were all better off for it. You don't see Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly duking it out. I mean, it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why the two of the best talents, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast, why do they have to die? I mean, it's a cultural dynamic that I just clearly do not understand. And when I say that, I say, okay, I grew up in a neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
I grew up in Bridgeport. We had the 31st Street Cobras. We had the Lock Street Lords.
Oh, you guys actually had like real gangs.
Yeah, we had the Latin Lords, Little Park Boys, and Armour Square. We had gangs, but this was all turf oriented, and there was fist fighting.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. There was an occasional baseball bat. No guns, no knives, no killings. Not good. But it was probably ended up being like, well, you dated my girlfriend from this area and you shouldn't, that kind of thing. And
Sure.
There were fist fights. So shootings is something out of my stream of consciousness. It's just not something that I can necessarily relate to.
Yeah, I think this is one time I'm gonna have to hit you with a mom please, because this is like definitely a very significant cultural shift, because you talk about like the gangs in Bridgeport,
right?
You know, when you were
not
younger.
To mention the cops were a gang too,
right? So this is in like the 1970s. I'm gonna assume,
correct.
Right? The times are just way different. I mean, the type of gangs that exist nowadays in the city of Chicago are of a much different breed, I think, than the types of gangs that existed in your time. And it's crazy to me because you can be like a regular person. I think a lot of gang violence, they say, if you're not involved in the gangs, then you should have like nothing to fear. You shouldn't really worry about any extra, gang violence coming down upon you because you're not part of that stuff. But 2 years ago, me and my wife were driving down to a wedding rehearsal down on like the south side of Chicago in like Beverly, in the Beverly neighborhood, right? Mm-hmm. And we just decided to drive
far south side for those of you,
way,
but in the city,
side,
but in the city for our viewers who are not Chicagoans.
Right. So we decide to just drive through the neighborhoods instead of like taking the highway or anything.
Right, sure.
And that takes us through some of the not nice parts of the city. And we literally witnessed like young kids, probably no older than like 14, 15 years old, like a group on one side of the street, group on another side of the street, look over to them, and then hear about like 6 or 7 gunshots ring out, and all the kids run away and scatter, right? And it's just like, it's that level of, that's what we're dealing with now.
Okay,
like in your neighborhood where it was just kids getting beat up with bats and sticks. Now the kids have guns.
Okay, so
now the kids have guns.
Take the guns, take the kids out of it.
Yeah.
We're talking about entertainers that are killing each other.
Right. But
I mean,
but they are speaking to, these entertainers are speaking to that specific culture, that is the music of that culture of where these kids are, the inner city music, right? Like most gangster rap, or most rap, especially from that 1990s era, was about killing people. It was about doing drugs. It was about being with a lot of women, like drugs, hoes, money, right? Guns. That's what it was all about.
Drugs,
right?
hoes, and bros.
Yeah. So I guess that part of it is just it's kind of interwoven into the fabric of rap.
I don't want to sound like Tipper Gore here, okay? Right? But it is. Well, we can talk about this later. It is wildly graphic, and that's why it was good for me to read about, because it is wildly graphic, and I needed to have a better understanding of why that it is so.
Yeah,
okay. So anyway.
So the episode continues, and there's some really interesting, never before seen footage and insider testimony that I think speaks kind of to what we're talking about here, that leaves a lot of questions about the murder of Tupac specifically. Because we, for the longest time, thought that there was a specific guy, Orlando Anderson, who is long believed to be the one who actually shot Tupac, the shooter, the guy who pulled the trigger. But there is a case currently with a guy named Dwayne Keffy D. Davis, who is now charged with Tupac Shakur's murder, which it doesn't mean he's the one who shot Tupac, but it does mean he's the one who arranged it, and allegedly he's the one who was driving the car when they drove past Tupac and shot him. So this guy gives this Dwayne Keffy D, he gives an actual interview in the 50 Cent documentary, and he alleges that Sean Combs offered a $1 million bounty to anyone who was willing to enact a hit, not just on Tupac, but also on Suge Knight. Okay, which that second part didn't happen. Suge Knight, didn't end up getting hit, but Tupac did.
Well, and the history behind Tupac himself was he was shot before this. He was shot 3 times before this, took 3 shots before this.
Right.
Was in the hospital, was out recovering, and when he finally gets back on his feet, that's when he gets gunned down again and gets killed. So it's and at 26 years old.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. So there's like this huge focus on this in this episode. There's a lot of juxtaposition of the success, like you're saying, in the artistic integrity versus just the brutal nature of gang violence and like gang killings, right? And this is not specifically gang violence and gang killings either. This is like an organized hit put out by another artist
right,
who's huge in the industry,
right?
You know,
right.
And
so why is it that they can't share the limelight, though, Eric? That's what I don't understand.
I guess to these guys, maybe it's more of a zero-sum game. Maybe they think that if they don't take out their rival, then the rival is going to take their spot. Like this goes back to what I was saying about Combs's upbringing in his own house, where you got to act right in the streets. You can't let another man come and take your spot. You can't let them come and take your girl. You can't let them come and disrespect you. You have to stand your ground. You have to, and she taught him, you got to be violent. You got to be physical, right?
Ugh.
So we think that now, based on all this information, that P. Diddy is a little bit more connected to the murders of Biggie and Pac than previously suspected. And the murder of Biggie was essentially a retaliation for the murder
Tupac.
of Pac. So, you know, it's really difficult to kind of stomach this, right? Because now when I hear any music that is like Biggie Smalls, or even stuff that P. Diddy has produced, or God forbid, the Sting, Every Breath You Take, P. Diddy, you know, like cover remix where he's talking about how he loves Biggie and how he's so sad that he's gone and dead, when he's basically responsible for Biggie dying.
Yeah.
That's gross. That's terrible.
Right. But here's and the thing about that is that I just don't understand how he rose above this. He's like the cream on the top of the
how does he continue
on the top of the hot chocolate? He's the cream on the top of the hot chocolate. He just doesn't get, you know, he doesn't get indicated in this in any way, shape, or form. Or people know about it and they just look the other way. I don't know.
There is a certain
code
level of, we don't talk to the police, you know, snitches get stitches, right? That type of thing.
Anyway,
so moving on to episode
3, which is perfect for a mother to talk about, Official Girl.
Yeah.
Okay. So after Biggie's death, Combs visibly, his influence and his just persona explodes. He becomes this defining, you know, pop culture person. He has clothing lines and he's on television and he's fashionista. And
he's got vodka.
He
has
got celebrity.
Brand,
he's got everything, you know.
Yep.
And then the narrative shifts quite drastically to his participation with women.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that he is abusive to them. And, you know, there's 4 women that we talk about: Kim Porter, J-Lo, and Cassie Ventura, and Aubrey O'Day, who are all mentioned. Well, I don't think J-Lo's mentioned per se, but she is. You see her image.
And anybody who has paid a passing amount of attention to Diddy's life knows
that J-Lo was part of it. Right.
I mean, she wore that one dress that everybody remembers with him, right?
Versace, I think. So anyway, Aubrey O'Day believes that his sexual advances to her, which she thwarted, affected her career in a negative way. So in other words, he's that influential that he can affect the ability of you to have a great career,
right? Because
you don't want to sleep with Diddy.
Yeah.
And
he did that to a number of different women.
Right. Yeah. And so the documentary frames these incidents as part of an escalating pattern of behavior that he has, and that he is maybe not, you know, the great guy that we kind of thought he was.
Right.
And they talk openly in this 3rd episode about how this is Official Girl. I think that's part of this. Every person in this industry, every guy in this industry has, you know, the mother of
The
their
main
children
chick and
or
the
the
side
wife
chick.
and a side
Yeah.
girl.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, what are they, Mormons? What the heck?
Well, something very interesting in this whole thing is you mentioned the name Cassie Ventura, right?
Right.
So she was with Diddy from like 2007 to 2018,
Mm-hmm.
but she was also with Kid Cudi during
she
that
was-
same time frame,
right, and-
like in 2010,
right, and
2011
don't
time frame.
they-
So
don't-
even she
right.
has a main guy and a side guy.
Well, but then I guess that Sean Combs really wanted her
Yeah, he was
and
not
wanted to
happy about
steal
that.
from this guy. So
Yeah,
they're not
yeah,
only
yeah.
just taking lives, they're stealing people. I
Yeah.
mean, it's crazy.
And Sean Combs even went so far as to, and this is in court documents, blow up Kid Cudi's car with a Molotov cocktail to get him away from
her.
Cassie Ventura. To like basically be like, if you keep messing around with her, your life has
Worse stuff will
your days
happen.
are numbered, my man.
Wow.
Like, you
wow.
know,
Okay, so the revelation.
crazy stuff. Like
I know it's not right.
that's
It's
like
just not right.
that's like some Pablo Escobar type stuff.
It's
you know,
just-
blowing up cars in
Yeah,
the street.
Right. And so episode 3 is really shows you these firsthand accounts. Aubrey O'Day probably detailing explicit emails from Combs that she in her rejecting his sexual advances.
Yeah.
And so then we're starting to see we're moving into sexual misconduct, coercion, and then workplace abuses as well.
Yeah.
Presenting a really strong pattern of behavior for him. And audiences that saw this, I think were troubled by the female component of it.
Oh, absolutely.
About his, the testimonies of females who just said, not a good guy.
Yeah, and I mean there was even video
Right.
of
Right.
something that Cassie
Yeah.
Ventura experienced, which it was a video from 2016, but was only released in like 2024, I think,
Right.
by CNN, and it shows her trying to leave a hotel,
Right.
and she's got like a big hoodie on. She's not showing her face. She's got like bags with her that she's carrying. And you notice in the video, if you pay really close attention to it, she's not even wearing shoes.
Right.
She's not even wearing shoes. And then she gets to the elevator, and then you see Diddy like running down the hallway in a towel, just a towel, comes, grabs her from the back of the head and just throws her on the ground. And then she just curls up like kind of in the fetal position and just kind of waits.
She's for whatever's going to happen.
Which tells me a number of things, right? It tells me the no shoes thing is how terrified
She had to get out
do
of
you
there.
think a person is to leave a place and not even go and grab their shoes and put them on before they go? Just I need to get away from here so bad. I'm just out. And two, her reaction to what's happening in the moment when it happens, she's experienced that before. That's there's no
right.
way
Not
based
new
on her
behavior.
reaction
Not
of
new
going into the
behavior.
fetal position, just like waiting for it to be over. There's no way that's the first time that she's experienced that. She
Right.
knows I don't fight
Right.
back. I just
Right.
let it be over. So that's what kind of gets me about the stuff in that episode
Right.
is that it's just so clear that Diddy, this is a pattern with him. Like he's done this before.
And
to this girl.
there's one incident, and I forgot which woman it was, but another woman is describing what happened to her, and this person has completely blocked it out. Almost has no memory of
Yeah,
it because
yeah.
it's such a traumatic experience.
That's a common thing with people that have
PTSD.
spent time
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Diddy is that they have these big periods of time where they blocked
Yeah,
out
blocking it out.
stuff because they have PTSD from these
Right.
heinous moments they have
So
to spend with
again,
this
we're
guy.
kind of going down the path of P. Diddy rap royalty to kind of going down a path of behaviors that are clearly illegal, clearly not normative.
Right. So then episode 4, titled Blink Again, focuses on the federal investigation, arrest, trial, and the overall effect on P. Diddy's legacy that this
Right.
is going to have. So the final episode brings up the federal investigation, and it kind of brings everybody up to speed with that ends up culminating in Combs's 2024 arrest. And the footage in here has some of those like days before his indictment stuff where he's like strategizing with his lawyers and kind of like slowly coming to terms with the fact that, oh my God, I might not be able to like totally stay squeaky clean this time in this whole thing. And that's interesting to me because, I did additional research for this episode and I found some interviews with his bodyguard from like 2007 to like 2011, 2012-ish time frame. And prior to this, the bodyguard described Combs as almost like excited to cause harm to people that he like knew that he would have to get into a court case and then pay this person off later. Like there was one night where he's out with Diddy and Diddy had gotten into a fight earlier that night and they had like whisked him away in his like motorcade and gotten him out of the situation. And while they're escaping that situation, like the bodyguard is describing Diddy as like gleeful and like saying things like, all right, man, how much more money do I have? Okay, I can fight like one or two more guys before I don't have any money anymore to like pay them off, right? And so he's actually like, he's gotten so corrupt to this point where he knows that to escape any legal charges, all he has to do is pay people
him off.
That's it. And he's like excited that he's so powerful and rich that he can do that.
He's above the law.
He's like completely above the law. And now he's finally kind of, his demeanor has shifted. His tone has shifted. He's in a situation where he realizes there's like no amount of money that I can pay to make this go away. And so
that he's going to have to face the music.
Right. That he's
going
to have to face all the music on this. So it goes into all the interviews with jurors from Combs' 2025 trial who kind of explain why they returned mixed verdicts, which I think is a bit of a miscarriage of justice and a bit of a travesty. I think they should have gotten this guy on everything.
But okay, let's back that up just a little bit. Let's take that apart a little bit.
Yeah.
So they return a verdict of 50
months.
50 months.
Yeah. So a little bit over
50
4
months,
years, right?
And a $500,000 fine.
Right,
Okay,
right.
A $500,000 fine to
a
Sean
billionaire.
Combs is like $100 to me.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a speeding ticket for you.
It's ridiculous.
Right?
It's ridiculous. Yeah. And the prosecutors were going for 11 and a quarter years.
Right. Which I think even that sounds like, based on all the stuff that this guy engaged in, sounds not that much.
Well, I don't know. He hasn't. There's no murder on the sheet, even though in our heads, in the back of our heads, there's
Tupac.
murder, right? Okay, okay, but that's not part of this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but if you recall, O.J. Simpson's trial, acquitted on everything, right?
Yes.
And okay.
Well, that was
here's a revelation, everybody. He did it. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So the jurors,
Mom, please wait. He did that. No.
Okay. So, the jurors were polled after that, or interviewed after that, and the people of color that sat on the jury said, "Hey, you know what? You didn't do right by us with Rodney King.
Yeah,
so
the beating of Rodney
therefore,
King.
we're letting this guy go.
Right.
We know he's the bad guy, but we're letting him go. So anytime you get any kind of jury pool that feels that they have been bullied or maligned in any way, this resulted in this case where he gets off a little easier than perhaps he should have.
Yeah, I definitely think that there was some amount of that, and even some of these jurors said as much in their interviews, that they were like, because of like the cultural influence.
I mean,
of
he's
Diddy,
Sean Combs.
He's Sean Combs.
Right.
Like, there's no way that he could
Right.
really have done these things, right? And it's like, a lot of people, I feel like, get power specifically so they can do these things.
Well, I don't
right?
know. I don't know about that because I don't know the psyche of that, right?
For me, it comes back to the idea of there is no such thing as an ethical billionaire. And Sean Combs was a billionaire,
Let
right?
me think about that.
Like there's
you
so few
you don't
people.
think Warren Buffett is ethical?
I can't imagine the ethics of somebody thinking I need to hoard billions and billions of dollars while there are people who are in the country that I live in, like starving in the street.
Well,
it's like
and the real interesting thing about that is he came from that. It's not like somebody
Diddy.
Yeah, it's not like, if I were a billionaire, which I'm not. If I were a billionaire, if I had $1 billion.
Okay, Bruno, come back to Earth.
Okay,
we're not on Mars.
Anyway, if I were a billionaire, I didn't come from that.
Right.
So,
right.
But I would still enable as much as I could to, help people who were suffering.
Yeah.
Right.
I would feel like if I ever achieved a level of success to that degree, I would look at my life and I would decide, what do I really need? I would cut off a certain amount of money for me, and then the rest of my money goes to things that can actually use it. Maybe not like charities, or like, I know charities are kind of a tough sell with a lot of them just paying themselves.
But maybe you create a foundation.
Maybe you create a foundation like Bill Gates has his foundation.
Yeah, Bill Gates, the cheater.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of billionaires who, not so great.
Anyway, so these jurors give him a little bit softer of a sentence than they probably should have. And I imagine that if I'm thinking about this and I'm hearing all this information and I'm a juror sitting in that seat, I might be thinking, man, if this guy gets out of prison, I better watch my back.
Exactly.
I better be careful.
You can't get in front of it.
Right. I don't want to be involved in this.
Did you in that episode? And I thought in one of the episodes I saw this, that there's actually a male employee.
Yes.
That was sexually abused.
Right. So there's this guy.
He's all over the place.
Yeah. So Diddy's kind of all over the place, but in this episode, this producer goes by the name of Lil Rod. He alleges that over not just the sexual abuse stuff, but over a span of 13 months, he worked with Diddy to produce his album, the Love album, Off the Grid. And he says that Diddy only agreed to pay him $29,000 for 13 months of work. That's not even like a livable, that's like poverty wages.
Well, and I don't think it was an agreed upon amount, was it? I thought he said over time he only gave me $29,000.
From what I understand, he hasn't even gotten any money from Diddy. As far as my information says, he's gotten $0 from Diddy right now. So, but he's like got a lawsuit open against him that's alleging all this other stuff. He alleged that there were times when Diddy would bust out like this enormous amount of baby oil and force him to like baby oil up, and apparently the baby oil has like drugs in it that are like the traditional like roofie drugs, like GHB and Rohypnol, that kind of messes you up, right? Or he would give people drinks that had drugs in them to ply them to do these
whatever he wanted
acts. To do. So there was allegations from Lil Rod of sexual abuse from Diddy. So maybe Diddy has. This is where for me, I think 50 Cent maybe had a little bit of editorial control and wanted to specifically just be like, yo, man, this Diddy dude is gay.
Okay, don't do that.
Diddy dude is gay.
Don't do that. Right? And there's nothing worse than accusing a
black
homo
man
guy,
in hip hop
a homosexual
of being
guy,
gay, right?
A heterosexual guy into being homosexual.
So that could be that, but this Lil Rod guy, I mean, he's got a lawsuit out there, so clearly he believes that some impropriety actually happened. There was another male employee of Diddy that worked for him from 2019 to 2021, who was like his personal assistant, basically would just manage everything in Diddy's life. And allegedly Diddy once recruited this guy to participate in one of these freak offs that Diddy had, which, by the way,
I don't even want to know what that is.
Oh, well,
you're going to tell me.
Too bad, Mom. Mom, please. Too bad. So the freak offs. I was under the impression before I saw any of this information that the freak offs were just like kind of these big like celebrity sex parties that a bunch of people attended. Oh, it's worse than that. It's much worse than that. And a lot of this information came out from the Cassie Ventura lawsuit. So the freak offs were defined as times when Diddy would get a bunch of men, like male prostitutes or gigolos, would ship them in. And this is why he got charged with shipping prostitutes across state lines. He would ship them in from somewhere else, and have like a group of men participate in a sex night, a night of sex. They would call them wild king parties, a night of sex.
So this is all
with
guys.
his woman.
With Diddy's?
With Diddy's woman. So Diddy would film Cassie Ventura being, sexually assaulted by a bunch of dudes, and would sometimes participate, but sometimes not. Which is like also a really weird thing. Like in the modern lexicon, the kids call that a cuckold, a guy who lets other men sleep with their woman, right?
That I was aware of.
And that's crazy to me too, because that's something you also don't want to be as like a modern hip hop mogul. Like this is like being a gay cuckold is not a good thing. So you don't want to be that. So there's like all these really weird things that this guy is doing.
Okay.
And it's just, to me, I think it's a bit of a travesty that the dude is going to be out in like 2028, after he's already served, some like 12 months. Well,
and they are counting whatever he's served now.
Time served, right.
That time served, he's getting that.
So
the analysis of this whole thing, right, is that Combs was this self-made titan of his industry, right? And that he came from nothing. And it was just culturally groundbreaking to be able to do that. But then it fosters all this control and power, fosters all this harmful pattern of behavior.
Really awful stuff.
And yet he seems to be protected by his success and celebrity. Now, this is a common thing. This is not just amongst rappers. You understand.
No. A lot of people
This is common
are
in our
protected.
society. You think about Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
You think about Harvey Weinstein. You think about Epstein.
Bill Cosby.
All of these guys were very successful, had a lot of power, and just do as I may. Right?
Yeah.
And that is just not okay. And somehow, culturally, we do have to prosecute these people.
We got to start holding people accountable. I feel like our culture has moved away from holding people accountable. I just feel like whenever I'm here in my city, and people see bad people doing bad things, they just kind of excuse it or like, oh, don't get involved. They might have a gun.
Well, they might.
They might just kill you. And it's like, well, I mean, I guess I better not stand up for anything if that's what everybody's going to say.
Everybody's got a phone. Everybody can call 911 if they witness something.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we've got, the signs in our neighborhood that say we call police.
You can call 911,
Yeah.
And then
I don't know if people like police right about now in this
nobody
country,
does, but putting yourself in harm's way is not smart either.
True.
But I think that's a way to, if I've done this, I've seen erratic drivers who I'm sure are like, drunk.
Yeah.
And I will call 911 and say,
this
is my
really
location.
Yeah.
This is my location. This is, I can get the license.
The license plate.
And this is a license plate. This is the exit I'm near. And I've done that because I'm worried that they're going to wrap somebody around a pole and kill some innocent person.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, good for you. I'm glad that some people are actually standing up and trying to get the law enforcement to do something about these situations.
Well, if they show up.
If they show up, right.
And then the thing about this documentary is that it doesn't come from one voice.
Right.
It comes from a whole group of voices, both East Coast and West Coast.
Right.
All talking about Combs.
Yeah.
Right? So
and a lot of people who have been very close to Combs, a lot of people who have either grew up with Combs. One of the people who was featured heavily in the interview is one of Combs' childhood friends who lived like in the unit just below his. Right. And another one of the people who's interviewed heavily is a guy named Kirk Burrows, who was the co-founder of Bad Boy Entertainment, and who, to tell you more about the type of guy P. Diddy is, P. Diddy ultimately screwed this guy out of his 25% share of Bad Boy Entertainment. He had him just sign it over one day, like in his office. He's like standing over
and
him,
and the guy
with
says,
a baseball
I felt
bat.
like I had to sign it over.
Yeah, like the dude's like, there's threats of violence. I felt like I had to sign it. And, he tried to go back in court and like get the 25% back, but it was like past the statute of limitations. It's terrible, man.
Right.
Like,
and
it reminds me of what Zuckerberg did to his business partner.
Oh, the twins?
Yeah. No. The other guy, the Sal
Oh,
guy.
yeah, right. Well, and the context of this, it is not sensationalized.
No, it's
not.
all pretty
it's
much
very straightforward.
factual,
right.
like
it's not,
one for one.
It's not. You don't feel like
stories.
you're on one of those evening.
Well, like the
crime
tabloid
shows,
kind of. The bad investigation discovery shows.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't feel
most
like
of those are good, but some of them are a little cheesy.
But it doesn't feel sensationalized in any way.
Yeah.
So, but are there any other controversies over the series that now that it's out there?
Well, one of the things you notice if you watch the series is that there has to be a disclaimer at the beginning and end of each episode that describes the exact charges and the exact things that P. Diddy was ultimately convicted of. And it says something like P. Diddy's legal team has reached out and disputes all of the things in this. Like, he's confident that his day in court is going to show that all of these things are factual and true, or all the things that are being said about him are untrue, and here are the actual facts. And it's like, oh, that didn't age very well, did it now,
No,
P. Diddy?
No, it did not. It would have been better if they didn't even answer the phone.
Yeah.
They returned no comment.
Yeah, so like one of the things that Combs's representatives allege, his lawyers allege, is that footage that was used was stolen. So I'm assuming that that's where the pre-indictment footage is from that 2024 where Combs is talking to his lawyers in like a hotel room.
Who gave that up?
I'm sure that one of the people close to him just got paid a whole bunch of money to give that,
and then left the country.
Footage, right? Probably. I mean, I would get out, right?
Right.
There's also some controversy surrounding his mom, who has come out saying that a lot of the stuff that is in the documentary is untrue and inaccurate. The narrative, and I kind of touched upon this earlier, you have to consider where the information is coming from, because it is all being produced by 50 Cent, who is a East Coast guy and was not working with P. Diddy at all during that. You know, he was actually picked up by Dr. Dre and hung out with like the West Coast crew, even though
he's an East
50
Coast
Cent's
guy.
From New York.
Oh.
Right?
Interesting.
So there's definitely like some beef there, and some people think that like the inclusion of like the allegations that he's like sexually assaulting his male employees is like taking it a little
too far.
Too much into like speculation and into stuff that we don't know is factually
and nothing
true.
that he was charged with.
Right, nothing that he was charged with, exactly. But then afterwards, in the legal world, the documentary manages to kind of connect its narrative arc through Combs's civil lawsuits, his federal indictment, and his 2025 trial,
which it should,
where he is ultimately convicted on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution and sentenced to those 50 months in prison, which I think for all of the things that are revealed in the documentary, 2 counts of, sexual trafficking seems like, wow, we really missed the mark on this guy. I'm going to stick to this.
You're sticking to that.
I'm sticking to
Okay.
this idea
Okay.
that I think that somehow, some way, this guy should be charged with more. And maybe the hundreds of civil lawsuits that are still on the table are going to reduce his fortune to basically nothing, which would be ideal. I think in an ideal world, that's
that's what happened with
OJ.
OJ, the civil cases prevailed.
Yeah.
And, he couldn't even pay them.
Right. And I mean, he was stealing his own sports memorabilia in the later years to try and get money to pay these people, right?
So anyway, in terms of the viewership, I always rate something how it's being received by how people are reacting to it.
Everybody is reacting
so
to it.
It came out in early December of 25.
Yep.
And Sean Combs' The Reckoning reached 21.8 million streams in the first 6 days that it was out.
That's kind of a lot, I feel like.
And there's widespread public interest in it.
Yeah.
And there's critics who are, some are not so favorable about it, but I think that stems from what you're saying, is that some of it feels maybe more speculative than it should be.
Right.
But they're getting a source on it that sounds credible.
Yeah.
It's not being sensationalized.
I think because of a lot of it is firsthand sources, you can feel like a lot of it is credible, because you hear different people who were involved in Combs's life at different points in his life who are independent from each other.
Right.
Giving like very similar stories of how they were treated at the hands of Combs.
Right. And then Rotten Tomatoes, they listed it at 90%.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good for them. Sean Combs himself, of course, publicly condemned the documentary.
Of course. Right.
As a shameful hit piece.
Oh, so much shame. Maybe he should have had some,
Yeah, shame, maybe.
Yeah.
And that Netflix used unauthorized sources and footage.
Right.
And that, 50 Cent is no friend of his.
Mm-hmm.
And the family, of course, his mother is saying there's lots of lies and inaccuracies in it.
Right,
So.
right.
Of course, what are they going to say?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to defend himself and protect himself in any way he can, right? And he's well versed in the idea of using the legal system to do so. So he knows that this is what you got to do, right?
Right.
But currently, I mean, that obviously didn't work so well for him because he did get indicted. And he was convicted in July 2025 on those 2 federal counts of transportation to engage in prostitution under the Mann Act.
And just for some of our friends, the Mann Act
what is it?
Transporting people across state lines for debauchery or prostitution.
Okay. So that's like a pretty
And the Mann Act
specific.
has been in existence since like 1900.
Okay, so this is
not a new thing.
So this guy would have been a criminal a long time ago.
It's not a new thing. Not a new thing.
Oh man. He was acquitted on the more serious charges of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking charges, which that's like the racketeering for me is the thing that I feel like he should be charged on because the racketeering is the thing that I feel like he should be charged on because it seems like he used his power and influence and his company, Bad Boy Entertainment, and all of the various, subsidiary companies to bully people. And he used his employees at these companies to go perform illegal things for him, like getting all these drugs that he needed to have all the time, getting like shooting people for him on his behalf, engaging in violence for him on his behalf, like all these things, right? So that kind of gets me. On October 3rd, the sentencing happened, and Judge Arun Subramanian,
right,
sentenced Combs to 50 months in federal prison and imposed that $500,000 fine that I agree with you is very, very lenient in light of all these charges.
Very light for him.
His sentence was basically commuted for 1 year already served, so that 50 months becomes like 38 months because he's been in detention since the arrest in September 2024.
Right. Where is he, do you think?
New Jersey. He's in a
is he at Fort Dix?
Federal yeah, he's at Fort Dix.
Okay, so but before that when he was just being detained.
Yeah, I wonder.
Where was he I'm imagining he had sofas and,
you think so?
Order up a latte.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't think it was hard time.
It probably wasn't. Yeah. It probably was. It's probably like
because he was still innocent then. They were just detaining him.
What do they call that? Club Met, or whatever it is, right? Yeah. According to the Bureau of Prison Records, he's going to be released sometime around June of 2028, which is about 3-ish years from now.
Right.
I think that's like kind of crazy. He's been housed in federal custody since his September 2024 arrest. Apparently, okay, here's the answer to your question. Initially at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn.
Oh.
So maybe actually not that fancy of a place. And that was before he was transferred to Fort Dix in New Jersey. There's been no credible reports of his release or furloughing or bail requests or anything like that. And his bail was even denied.
Oh,
before,
that's interesting.
Like he didn't have option for bail because I think that they assumed that he would start tampering with witnesses almost immediately because he has a history of doing stuff like that. Or he would just flee the country. One of the two.
Well, they'd take his passport.
Right.
Or would somebody take him out?
I don't know. See, that's an interesting question. Maybe not.
I don't know. I don't know who his enemies are.
It feels like he was too powerful. If somebody was going to take him out, I feel like somebody would have done it at around the time of the Biggie and Pac murders, right? Because that would have been the most clear
logical
time to retaliate against him, right?
Right.
And Suge Knight apparently did nothing about it, so who knows? This is kind of interesting though. So he has Diddy has written a letter to Donald Trump, who apparently it came across Trump's desk in January earlier this year, like the first week of January.
January of 25 or January
26.
26. Oh, yeah, I didn't know
this is like super fresh. This is super fresh. And it asked that the president would pardon him.
Right.
You know, so it's not like a formal request for pardon. It's like a personal, like, do me a favor. You know, we were both like doing our reality TV shows. I was doing Making the Band. You were doing The Apprentice. We kind of palled around with each other a little bit. Like, do me a solid here.
Right.
But Donald says that he's not really very interested in looking into this. He will, but he doesn't really like Diddy because Diddy was not hot on him in the 2020 election.
Oh, now that's of course, Donald is never interested in just pure justice. It
always has to be about
personal.
him. It has to be about him. Yeah. So that's like probably not happening. And then experts do note that he can be pardoned by the president because the charges that he is charged with are federal charges.
They're federal, right?
Right. They're not state charges. So it is possible, but the likelihood of it is like nothing. So the earliest we'll probably be hearing from this guy is sometime around 2028, most likely.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, in addition, you know, when you have a federal conviction, that helps people file civil lawsuits.
Right.
Because then you're culpable, so it helps a civil lawsuit because the threshold for proving it is less.
A lot less.
Right?
Yeah.
So as of this time, right now, there are about 70 civil complaints against Sean Combs.
Wow.
And
it's a lot.
Most notably, in 2023, Cassie Ventura
that was the big one.
Sued him and she received $20 million.
Yeah.
But of course, you know, when there's a settlement and not a conviction, that what happens then, you know, there's no admission of wrongdoing. It's just she's getting paid off.
Right. But I think what's good about that is that the ultimate settlement in favor of Cassie Ventura was kind of the catalyst to start all the criminal proceedings. Right. That's what began these investigations. Okay,
that was before that. That was
Yeah. That was before the whole investigation, and her willingness to go forward with that was really, really important. And I think great for her. And I think the thing that people speculate that sparked her decision to do that after that, like, because she wasn't with the guy for like 4 or 5 years at that point, right? People speculated that in 2022, Diddy received a Lifetime Achievement Award, I believe, from MTV.
No, from BET.
Oh, from BET. Okay, so he received the BET Lifetime Achievement Award. And in his acceptance speech, he shouted out Cassie Ventura, and he said something along the lines of like, you know, I went through a lot of like really, really dark times. There were some bad moments in my life, but Cassie was the reason that I got through it. Cassie Ventura really held me down. Much love, girl, you know, and that was kind of seen as like the industry was like, oh my God, Diddy's not over this girl. And to be fair, if you see Cassie Ventura, like back then in the day, this girl is gorgeous. Like, I can totally understand why you might not be over this girl, right?
Right. It's not just about looks, though.
No, probably not.
Inner
but she
beauty.
was also really talented,
beauty.
apparently. You know, the only reason she didn't have a career is because Diddy didn't let her have one.
Right.
Again, controlling women, right? So people think that he's like not over this girl and that he's basically like reaching out through the ether to be like, I'm gonna get you. You can't escape me.
Okay.
Kind of like that sort of a thing. And that's what people think spurred Cassie to go forward with the lawsuit because she needs to get away from this guy somehow now. She needs some sort of legal protection.
Well, that'll separate them for sure.
Right.
Well, and then as of now, Tony Busby, the plaintiff's attorney on all of this, has filed more than 40 separate civil lawsuits against Combs.
Wow.
And, of course, thinks that there's going to be many more that will pop up.
Right.
And, you know, the impact of the criminal case helps the civil case. That's just the way it is.
For sure.
So there will be... Combs himself tried to appeal his Mann Act conviction.
Yeah.
And that's the federal conviction for that because it's, you know, interstate. But the federal judge denied that already.
Good.
Okay.
At least we're getting some things right in this country.
Yeah. And they, of course, they filed formal notice of appeal, his attorneys. But, you know, the appeals court can go on and ever and ever and ever.
And that's their job anyway, as attorneys.
That is
they
their job
do that.
to represent him.
Yep.
So that's where that's all that.
Yeah. So that's basically all that's in the episodes. Some little fun facts after all that we go through. I think one of the funniest things, and that's to say, in a situation
if there is anything funny
really,
here.
honestly, not very funny. But to me, one of the funniest things was 50 Cent made sure that Diddy was able to watch this documentary while he was serving his prison sentence. And you can tell that Diddy did watch the documentary because his legal team sent out information saying all this stuff's untrue. So that guy watched through these things like 2 or 3, maybe
so he's
50 times.
Yeah, he's got some.
And like Diddy's legal team, it's funny, they keep reaching out and doing things like, you have to get rid of this documentary. Listen, Your Honor, we moved to dismiss, and on the grounds that all this is devastating to our case. And that's just,
well, it is. I don't know how that would impact it.
Yeah, right.
But it's out there already. You can't take it back.
Yep, that's true. I mentioned this earlier. Diddy, similarly to Mark Zuckerberg, another guy that I think a lot of people don't really like very much right now, screwed his co-founder Kirk Burrows out of an incredible amount of money, or what would be an incredible amount of money. Yeah. And that would have been in the form of his ownership of Bad Boy Entertainment. That 25% ownership that Diddy made him sign over and then promised to return at a later date, never returned it at that later date. Burroughs tried to sue him. Statute of limitations is closed.
Done.
Diddy gets away with it again. And then what you were talking about with Lil Rod, several men close to Combs have accused him of sexual misconduct. And that includes Kirk Burrows, as well as Rodney Lil Rod Jones. It's like more and more stuff comes out about this guy that's just like, what isn't he willing to do? Where is the line for
there
a
is
guy
no line, apparently.
like P. Diddy? Yeah, there might not be one, right? And so those are just a couple of things that I found interesting. Now, what do you think about all this, Mom?
Well,
what are your thoughts?
I have
personal thoughts.
I have a whole hard time with the documentary because I know nothing about rap. The rap songs that I know are so in the mainstream,
like Vanilla Bubblegum
right?
Pop.
Yeah, right.
It's like that Outkast song, Hey
right,
Ya.
Right. That's how I know them because it's just so out there. But after looking into it, I did, like I said, I did a little bit of research, and I do understand that rap came out of the boroughs in New York City, and it was done at parties, and it was stories told about the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, I think that's great. It had nothing to do, what I think of traditional music, with melodies. And that's kind of where it loses me because I love a melody.
Fair.
So there's no melody associated. It's really storytelling, with a beat, and then later on they bring in the DJs and the scratching and then filtering in backdrops.
Yep.
What was the song you
hooks,
just said?
Hey Ya.
Hey Ya, or the songs where they put in somebody else's background and you're rapping over it.
Yeah.
The Sting
Sampling
song. The
stuff.
Sting song.
Oh yeah, the
Right,
Sting song,
right,
Every Breath
right,
You
right,
Take.
right, right.
Yeah.
But the lyrics are wildly explicit, explicit. Excuse me.
Generally, yes.
And that gives me a little pause because I'm
just
a
listen to Will Smith, Mom.
Right, okay,
he's super clean.
I do love Will Smith, even though he punched Chris Rock. But I think he'll come back. I think he'll come back.
He's already coming back.
Right.
I've seen advertisements for movies and stuff.
But I do like, I do like rock and roll, and rock and roll was noted at its time for being quite explicit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
But not in the same way. I mean, I won't even say these words out loud, but they didn't say words like WAP. You can just put that in the...
Wait, Mom, are you telling me that you don't blast wet when you and Tom go and like...
I did not want you to say
get into the bedroom? You're not like blaring it like wet ass.
No, okay, stop right there. Please, Eric.
Okay.
Eric, please.
I'll stop.
And
try it sometime.
And they talk about immoral stuff. They talk about killing. They talk about drugs. They talk about abusing women.
Yep.
And I don't, and that's all that's happening in the neighborhoods. But here's what happened with these guys.
Yeah.
They all made money and they're out of the neighborhoods and they have these glorious, lovely lifestyles. So they're not part of that anymore. But do they still make money off of it because they still sing about it or they still rap about it? I mean, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But that's what's offensive to me a little bit. Go back to the neighborhood. Although I have read Snoop himself says that he raps about consequences of these behaviors now. So yay Snoop. But again, there's how do you justify the killing of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls? That's just
that's one of the things that's really tough for me and very inexcusable, because these two were going to be
big,
huge artists
talents
in this industry.
As for Sean Combs, it would have been a beautiful story. This person that rises from nothing and becomes a big mogul. And, I think all of his goods, his brands, I think they've been removed from the stores that had them
Probably,
at this point.
Most likely.
And
who would even buy that stuff anyway now, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. But, and amongst all this is happening in the background for a long time, and it doesn't seem to adversely affect his public persona. So BET gives him an award, and Howard University gives him a PhD, and he gives it $1 million to him. And since his conviction, Howard says, "Sorry, no more PhD
they
for
took
you,
that back
and
from him,
here's your money back." If he
Yeah.
even gave him the money,
Yeah.
I don't really know. So I can't really say that I'll ever love rap music. I can't say that, although again I do like Will Smith. But if it speaks to the people in the neighborhood and somehow gives them comfort, I'm all about that. But to say the least, Sinatra he didn't like rock and roll. He's rolling over in his grave about rap. I mean, it's just not a thing. And I wonder, what does Stevie Wonder think about all this? What does Ray Charles think about it? What does Smokey Robinson think about it?
Yeah.
What are these even Michael Jackson?
Or like Earth, Wind, and Fire.
These were,
these guys.
they were different than this, and they still told stories, but not with all this immoral side of it. I guess,
and the explicit side of
and
it.
not explicit. So here's what I have to say, baby boomers: if you have an indescribable interest in Sean P. Diddy Combs, then watch it. Watch the 4 episodes. It won't take much of your life to do that.
Yeah.
But if you have no interest in him or not culturally interested in what's going on in society, you can take a pass on this, because this is not going to impact you in the same way that the death of John Lennon did, or the death of JFK or MLK. It's just not that impactful. But I do have one thing that I wanted to read about.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This is from Snoop Dogg, because, you obviously see I have attitude about this, right?
Yeah.
But here's what Snoop says, because I don't think positively about rap.
Okay.
He says, one thing about us.
Mom.
Right. One thing about us, we always get classified for being violent or making others act in a violent manner.
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg says, but if you really look at what we do, we're the most peaceful people in the world when it comes to making music, because we are the only ones that can bring gangbangers, white people, Asian people, people from all over the world to come together and stand in a concert and rock to a rhythm of the groove and not want to fight each other and not have issues with each other based on the music and the memories that we give them.
That's nice.
Well said.
And I do think that he's absolutely right about the music of rap bringing people together, because if you do any sort of like cursory analysis, even just using your brain, you don't have to do a lot of like number crunching or anything. White people in this country are by far the biggest consumers of rap music. Like there just aren't enough black people to be the actual consumer of this music. So in reality, if you want to think about it, the suburban white kid who got turned on to rap music when they first heard an NWA song, like Police.
I hate that.
That is the real target market for this music. It is these like white kids in these suburban hellholes that are just feeling so repressed and want to break out of it. And when I was younger, that's kind of how I felt. And that's why I, identified at least in part with rap music. And people would be like, oh yeah, that rap music you're listening to, you're such a gangbanger. You identify it with so much, like sarcastically, right?
Of course.
Ironically. And it's like, Well, if you break it down and you think about the themes that are being presented, it's resistance to authority is one of the major themes of hip hop music.
Rock and roll always had that.
Well, yeah, but like rock and roll from your generation was amazing and incredible. Rock and roll from my generation was It was okay. We had some really cool groups that I think did represent that like stand up to the man type thing, like Zach De La Roca and
the problem is that
Rage Against the Machine.
Everybody wants to stand up to the man, but then they become the man.
Yeah,
even the rappers become the man. Eric.
You know, what did they say in Who? Or in that Who song, "Meet the New Boss,"
right.
Same as the old boss,
right?
Yeah, it's crazy, but
I love a Who.
You know,
I love a Who.
I do like that. I love that
reference.
you brought these and that you did that extra research with these books. That's fantastic, Mom.
Okay, that's all I have to say about this, Eric.
Well, I think honestly that's all either of us have to say about this. So if you're good, I think we'll wrap up this episode.
We'll wrap up the rap.
Yeah, nice. Ugh, so cringe. But anyway, join us next month for an episode that we don't exactly know what we're going to do it on. But personally, I want to talk about ICE. I want to talk about the stuff that our federal government is doing.
Well, we're not sure we're talking
but
about
we'll
that.
See.
But
we'll see what we're going to talk about.
We could.
On your guys' way out, please hit that like and subscribe button. And remember to mind the generation gap and keep it civil, everyone.